your man, Louie Tee. Welcome to the 2018 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where your man Louie Tee aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2018 NFL Draft using our baseball grading scale. Single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series. We cannot tell how these players are going to pan out, and I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. And so we'll get a score for each and every single player selected in said team's draft. We'll apply bonuses when necessary, divide by the number of picks, which will yield us an overall grade for that team's draft. We'll then move on to the next team in the series picked by you. That's right, you, the viewers, are in total control, as this is the You Pick format. Simply be the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos in this series stating two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. Some examples would be Eagles, next, Philly, next, PHI, next, fly, Eagles, fly, next, Super Bowl champs. Yes, I just said Super Bowl champs. Still a little salty about that, but those boys earned it. The next team up in this series is none other than the EAGLES Eagles. And the Super Bowl champions looking to repeat and duplicate what they did a season ago. You know, these bastards had the audacity to throw a block party and rewatch the Super Bowl and celebrate it all over again. Gotta love when you give a little money to some cats who ain't never had money before. But I tell you one thing, Howie Roseman, and I said this last year as we were in the midst of the Eagles doing what they ultimately did, which was win the Super Bowl. I said Howie Roseman deserves Hall of Fame induction now, because what he did with this Eagles franchise was nothing short of remarkable in such a quick turnaround. And he continued to build this roster in this offseason, cut bait with some guys, added on more deadly pieces to what was already a very good roster, maybe the deepest in the league. And you go out and add to what is already probably the most talented defensive line in all the football, Haloti Ngata and Michael Bennett. You go ahead, move on from Torrey Smith, and you're going to add other pieces, and you're hoping some young guys, maybe a Shelton Gibson or someone, steps up to the plate. But there are some other questions about this Eagles team. They're looking to address that, i.e. the offensive line, Carson Wentz's health. All of these things I think Eagles fans feel good about, but you still would like some reassurance. They didn't put a lot of stock into this draft. Only 5 selections, but damn it, there were some good ones in here for the Philadelphia Eagles. And when you're as good as the Eagles are, as deep as the Eagles are, not a lot of roster spots available anyhow. So to go out, go in, get what you want, and get out of the draft, have no problems with it. And it's always nice when you can step on a divisional rival's head, leapfrog them, snatch a player that they were looking to get, and get out in the process. That always helps too. And that's what the Eagles did with their first selection in this draft. 49th overall, second round, tight end out of South Dakota State. Dallas Goedert is the selection. So I've already broken down Dallas Goedert in my Draft Prospects 101 series. So if you're looking for a thorough breakdown of him and any other player that I may have gotten to pre-draft, go to the Louie Tee Network on YouTube, type in, go into the playlist section and find the Draft Prospects 101 series. But I can tell you this right now, this was a hell of a get by Howie Roseman and company. They traded back out of the first round because the Ravens were desperate to get their hands on Lamar Jackson. So they took full advantage of having that final pick in the first round and having a quarterback sitting there and some team wanting to come and get that 5th-year option. Good for the Eagles to flip that and turn it into more assets in which they would use to move back up into the second round to leapfrog the Dallas Cowboys, who I really feel were going to take Dallas Goedert with that selection at number 50. Instead, you get in front of them with the 49th selection and you take Dallas Goedert, tight end out of South Dakota State. So not only do you get a point for getting a hell of a football player, you get another point for leapfrogging a divisional rival and snatching the player that they wanted right from beneath their feet. So this is a hell of a pickup because you've already got arguably one of the best pass-catching all-around tight ends in all of football in Zach Ertz. Now you add to the mix a dominant pass-catching threat, the likes of a Jimmy Graham, to your offense, and all of a sudden now, this is probably the best tight end duo potentially that we've seen since Chris Cooley and Fred Davis. Nah, I'm playing. Since Gronk and Aaron Hernandez, and we remember just how dominant those two were when healthy. Those guys were damn near unstoppable. You saw what Ertz did. He lit the NFL on fire a season ago. Eagles rewarded him with new money, and he went out and balled out for them. You add Dallas Goedert to that mix, and all of a sudden now, with the talent that you have at the tight end position, you look at what you have at receiver, there's some stuff out there. Alshon Jeffrey, never, ever trust a man with 2 first names. And the emergence of Nelson Aguilar, all of a sudden now, with that talent there at receiver, these 2 at tight end, and the complement of backs that you have, it's a dangerous Eagles offense, as if they weren't dangerous already to begin with. Second round, 49th overall selection, tight end out of South Dakota State. Dallas Goedert, by far and away the best pass-catching tight end in this draft. Easily could have went in the first round. You get him in the mid-portion of the second round, I'd say hell of a job there by Howie Roseman.
Hits one high. Hits it deep. It is out of here.
For those of you scoring at home, that was a home run for Dallas Goedert. We go to the next selection for the Philadelphia Eagles, 4th round, 125th selection. Cornerback out of Pitt, Avonte Maddox is the selection. I tried my hardest not to like Avonte Maddox going into this process of watching his tape. So the guy's 5'9", $184. What could he possibly bring to the table other than maybe a little bit of returnability and the ability to maybe play in the slot? I was wrong, okay? This guy does a little bit of everything. He may be one of the most versatile corners in this entire draft class because of all of the things that this guy does. This guy fills up the stat sheet. And when I read you off the list of his accomplishments in terms of stats, you'll be amazed at what this guy in such a small package actually brings to the table. Small guy, big talents. And so I think the Eagles did themselves a service here. And what this essentially is for me is a replacement for Patrick Robinson. You allowed him to walk in free agency. He went back to New Orleans where it all started for him. And you needed someone in the slot to really pick up the pieces for you there. And I think this is a guy that it may not be in his rookie season, although I think he's ready to step in right away and help and contribute. Eventually, he's going to be your slot corner. I don't think he's going to do what he did at Pitt, which is play outside on the boundary. But stranger things have happened. We've seen 5'9", 5'10" corners play out wide before in this league, but that was in yesteryear. Most times, these guys this size are relegated to slot duty and slot duty alone. So I'm thinking in my mind that that's exactly what the Eagles envision for Avonte Maddox. But let's break him down quickly. 5'9", $184 out of Pitt. Here's a guy, 4'3", 40, lit it up at the combine, 13 reps of 2 1/4, 37-inch vert, and you see it on tape too. Okay, he's not one of those guys where he's jumping out of the gym, he's testing like a workout warrior, but it doesn't necessarily translate to the field. That's not the case with Avonte Maddox. You see it on tape, him jumping up with a 6'4", 6'3" receiver and knocking a football away at its highest point. And you're like, bro, you do know you 5'9", right? Like, you're not supposed to be doing that. He's like, yeah, but I got a 37-inch vert, though. So this guy can get up 10-4 broad. Listen to these career numbers. Listen to the amount of things that this guy gets into. All right, this is such a very extensive rap sheet here for Avonte Maddox. 8 career INTs, 2 of which went to the crib. 7 sacks. We're talking about a cornerback here, folks. 7 sacks as a blitzer. That is insane. this guy is getting to the quarterback. And he's not just getting to the quarterback. He's looking for the rock, too. 3 forced fumbles, and I got to watch 2 of them on tape, and both were equally impressive as to how he got the football out. 34 PBUs, so he's knocking the football away in addition to picking it off, too. 1 block kick, so he's also offering some special teams value in addition to a kickoff return for a touchdown. And then 13 tackles for loss. Again, we're talking about a cornerback. And those tackle for losses, 7 of them are sacks, correct. But there's still 6 more that are unaccounted for that are out in space tackles that this young man is making. And you got to give him credit at 5'9", $184, to be able to go and get guys on the ground at that size and be fearless while doing so. Hats off to Avonte Maddox. Missed 5 games over the last 2 seasons due to an arm injury. So he's a guy, look, diminutive size at 5'9", $184. It's understandable if he throws his weight around a couple of times. And I don't know the extent of those arm injuries. Could have been a shoulder, could have been a forearm, could have been an elbow, could have been a bicep. Who knows? All I know is that at 184, you're liable, you're more susceptible to getting injured if you're throwing your body around. And this guy throws his body around. So in any event, speed is ridiculous. 4.39, I already told you this guy's got elite level speed, athleticism, acceleration. All of those things are off the charts for Avonte Maddox. Change of direction and agility. He's a guy that really moves easy on the field. He's what you call an easy mover, a guy that gets around the football field into any spot on the field with relative ease, opens up his hips very easily and fluidly, allows for a quick change of direction. He's one of those guys that likes to face the receiver as he's running down the field. I'm not a huge fan of that because a lot of times what happens when you do that is you don't see the football, but somehow, some way, this guy manages to see the football, loves to look back for the ball, which you know is one of my biggest pet peeves when you don't. He's a guy that actually does, so that made me feel a really, really strong way about Avonte Maddox. And again, you don't get 8 INTs without finding the football. So obviously, you knew he was a guy that would look for the ball. Anticipation and awareness. There's an interception that I also put down in my notes for his zone coverage ability, but it's more along the lines of anticipation and awareness, what that play kind of represents for me. I'm watching him again, and they got shredded in that game. I mean, the score was 42-7 at halftime. And I'd venture to say 28 of those points maybe came in the first quarter. This game was never close. They never stood a shot in this game, did Pitt. But nonetheless, they were getting carved up by Oklahoma State. And he was in zone coverage. And this is a concept that you see teams run quite a bit, where you've got a guy, and they're looking to attack cover 3 is what essentially you're looking to do with this route combination. You've got 2 receivers lined up to your right in this particular instance. And the Oklahoma State quarterback, I'm trying to think of his name. The Steelers drafted him in the 3rd round, I believe. His name will come to me. I can see his face. But in any event, you can either have the tight end run the corner route or you can have the slot receiver run the corner route. But it's a simple concept where you're looking to isolate that safety one-on-one, and because it's so much ground for him to have to cover, you're looking to bait that outside corner because each member has a third of the field. You got the free safety with a third of the field. You've got the boundary corners on each side with a third of the field. And just looking to attack this cover 3 defense because that corner out wide is looking to stay deeper than the deepest in his third of the field. So you get that receiver on the outside on that boundary out at the numbers to run a comeback, which will attract that corner on the outside, suck him up, and then you run the corner route right behind him in hopes that that single high free safety over the top can't get there in time. And normally Mason Rudolph, who was the quarterback for Oklahoma State, you're hoping to get that football over that cornerback before the safety can get there, and it should be an easy 6. Instead, Avonte Maddox reads the eyes of Mason Rudolph, sees what he's trying to do, sags off of the comeback, which is which was essentially a diversion to just pull him up to allow that corner route to be wide open. He sags underneath that corner route. Mason Rudolph doesn't see him, doesn't anticipate. Avonte Maddox does, and he runs in front of the pass and picks it off. Beautifully executed, and that's essentially having the awareness to know what a team is trying to do to you, what a quarterback is trying to do to you, what this route combination is looking to do and achieve and defeat it, and he did that on that particular play. I talked about him being an LLCer, look, locate, contest. Again, if you don't look back for the football, how can you locate it? If you don't locate the ball, how do you pick it off if you don't know where it is? He looks back for the football, hence the 8 INTs in his career, and you get to see the ball skills on display. I watched him against Virginia Tech. I talked about the Oklahoma State pick. You got to be looking if you're going to make plays on the football. Tackling and willingness to tackle. The first game I watched him in was against Penn State in 2017, and that was impressive. The first play, one of the first plays, might have been the first play or the second play of the game, they throw a swing screen to Saquon Barkley. And they're looking to get Barkley out on the edge, get a couple blockers out in front of him, see if he can do some damage early on in that football game. And Avonte Maddox, who was in the slot at the time, blows up the receiver, gets him to the outside, and then makes the tackle on Saquon Barkley for about a gain of 1 or 2. It was one of the most beautiful things these eyes have seen from a slot corner in terms of aggressiveness coming up to make a tackle in quite some time. He could have easily allowed himself to be blocked, played behind the block. He didn't do any of those things. He was aggressive. He jumped the outside, blew up the blocker, and made the tackle by himself. That was uber impressive. Not to say that that's what he does all the time as a tackler. I saw him get his ass juked out of his damn drawers before, fall down and not even touch the wide receiver. So it's not like he's a tackling machine, but he's very aggressive for a guy 5'9", buck 84. He's not afraid to mix it up, get in there, and get in on a tackle. Man coverage ability. I thought if you want to see Avonte Maddox in all of his splendor from a cornerback perspective in man-to-man situations, turn on the Virginia Tech game. He was outstanding. I thought by far and away that was his best game that I watched him in. Just play after play. They kept coming after him because they had the size advantage, and he just wasn't having it. He did give up, however, one big play in that game, and it was unfortunate because they threw at him the play before, and it was the same exact play. Cam Phillips, the best receiver that Virginia Tech may have had in the history of the school, they threw a go ball up to him, essentially down the field, a jump ball, and Avonte Maddox wasn't having it. He was in better position to pick the ball off than Cam Phillips was to make a play on it. And so Cam Phillips essentially had to play defensive back and make sure that he didn't come down with the football. They go right back to that same exact play on the next play, on the next snap, and Avonte Maddox once again in perfect position, but this time he goes to plant to set up to jump, and he slips. His feet slip from underneath him. He goes down. Cam Phillips comes up with the football and strolls into the end zone. It was unfortunate because a day that was so well played by Avonte Maddox was tarnished by that one deep ball given up on a play where he just simply slipped. Nonetheless, thought he was outstanding in that Virginia Tech game. And you get to see the best of him in man situations there. Zone coverage, I think he's solid in zone, but I think he gives up. For a guy with his skill set, I think he gives up too much in zone coverage. I think he allows easy underneath completions when in zone, especially in cover 3, cover 4 situations. I think he allows too many completions underneath in those situations, too many easy completions. I'm watching him against Oklahoma State, and there are a couple of times he's not even in the picture. And I'm like, bro, that's way too much space. Granted, James Washington ran by him a couple of times, and I think he respected his speed. Still no excuse for a guy running a 4.39 to be giving up that kind of space. So I like him in zone because I like his aggressiveness, attacking the football, seeing what the quarterback's doing, as I mentioned, with the pick against Oklahoma State. But I prefer him in man situations because I know he has the ability and the speed to be able to stay in a guy's hip pocket and make a play on the football. So blitzing capabilities, this may be one of my favorite attributes that he comes equipped with. You stick this guy in the slot, and he is so adept at blitzing that he can be a difference maker from the slot as a blitzer or as a guy looking to lock up the other team's slot receiver. There was a sack against Duke. There was a strip versus Rice. And there was a strip versus Miami that I watched that was gorgeous because he didn't even touch the quarterback on the strip versus Miami. He didn't even touch the quarterback. He got pushed around, and as he was going around, he just reached out and knocked the football out of the quarterback's hand before he could even throw it. That's headsy. That's so smart. Okay, you're not going to get that. And anytime he gets a sack, he's looking to get the football out. He's looking to swipe for the ball. I love it. Want more of it. Versatility off the charts for this guy, obviously. I told you that this guy can play out wide. I wouldn't recommend it at the next level, but he can play in the slot, which I think is going to be his home at the next level for the Philadelphia Eagles. You can put him on kickoff return. You can put him on punt return. He did both at some point in his career at Pitt. They also used him on offense a couple of times as a runner, so you can do that with him. Again, this guy brings so many different skill sets to the table. He's a blitzer. He's a willing tackler. I think Avonte Maddox has a lot to offer this Philadelphia Eagles football team. You look at his cons, and there's only one, and that's his size, his measurables. But again, if you're going to put him in the slot, 5'9", who cares? Okay? Who cares? Most guys in the slot aren't 6'3". Those guys are on the outside. You're playing against a small, diminutive receiver in the slot most times. Most of those guys are 5'9", 5'10", 5'11" themselves. So 5'9" isn't a big deal if he's in the slot. If he's out wide, then we got another set of problems and questions on our hands then. But as of right now, I wanted to not like this guy because of his size. Boy, is this guy really good. In the 4th round, I think this is great value, 125th pick overall. Pitt cornerback Avonte Maddox for me is. So we stay in the 4th round, 130th overall selection. Edge rusher out of Florida State, Josh Sweat is the selection. So here's another guy that I've already broken down, so I'm not going to do that here. If you're looking for an extensive breakdown, once again, go to the Louie Tee Network on YouTube. Go to the playlist section, Draft Prospects 101 series. There you'll find an extensive, thorough breakdown of what Josh Sweat brings to the table. The fact that I broke him down before the draft means that this guy is uber talented, or at least I viewed him in that light prior to the draft. I look at this guy and I say sky's the limit. Sky's the limit for Josh Sweat. He will be as good as he wants to be. And no one will be able to determine that but Josh Sweat. If he wants to be one of the better edge rushers in this league, he can do that. But he's got to be willing to put in the work. He's got to be willing to give the effort. He's got to be willing to sacrifice the things that need to be sacrificed to be great. Greatness doesn't fall into your lap. He was blessed with the gifts to be great. How do you use those raw gifts that were given to you is another totally separate discussion for another day. I can tell you this much. At 6'5", 250 pounds, running a 4.53 with a 39.5-inch vert, he's got all of the requisite needs to be explosive off the edge. He's long. He's active. The guy was the #1 recruit coming out of high school in his class before he tore his ACL. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, this guy's uber talented. Did not live up to the hype at Florida State, but at times he flashed that ability that made him the #1 recruit coming out of high school at one point. So I see it, but I don't believe that Josh Sweat is going to be great unless he's willing to be great and put in the work that is necessary. And I don't know if he's willing to do that on a consistent basis. But nonetheless, yet another talented guy to throw in the mix with a bunch of talented guys. It's hard to look at a guy like Josh Sweat and say that he can't succeed. It's hard to say that he won't succeed in Philadelphia with all that talent. They're not asking this guy to come in and be great. They just drafted a pass rusher in the 1st round last year out of Tennessee. Okay? They've got defensive linemen coming out of their ear holes, out of their assholes, out of their nose holes. They got them coming out everywhere. Interior pass rushers, exterior pass rushers. So Adding a guy like Josh Sweat only adds more ammunition up front for what is already an uber talented front seven in Philadelphia. I think this guy's got a chance to be special, but it's going to take special work on his part to get the most out of what he was blessed with in the 4th round, 130th overall selection. Edge rusher out of Florida State, Josh Sweat, for me, is. Oh, and by the way, for those of you keeping score at home, Avonte Maddox was a triple. Josh Sweat was a double. As we move on to the 6th round, 206th overall selection, offensive lineman out of TCU, Matt Pryor is the selection. Here was a guy that I was really surprised about when I watched the tape, because when I did my pre-prospect studies, I read all of the things and all of this. I read all of the things that are symptoms of a guy that's going to be extremely lazy, extremely sluggish on the football field, a plotter, a guy that's going to be able to be beaten easily with athleticism. And I got something totally different. And so I was amazed. Matt Pryor is 6'7", 332 pounds. And anytime you hear, hey, he had to lose 20 pounds to get down to 332, you're like, oh, shit, here we go. We got one of those. Yeah, he's one of those, but it doesn't look like it. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, watch this dude on tape. He's massive. And I don't have to tell you that he's 6'7", 332. He's massive. He's huge. I watched him engulf some guys. It's ridiculous. Nonetheless, 23 reps of 2 1/4, 5'6", 40. So not the greatest athlete in the world, 36-inch arms. Woo! Woo! And he's got huge hands, over 11-inch hands, ridiculous. So that punch is legit. This was the thing that scared me in my pre-prospect homework. He came to college at 390 pounds, and anytime I see one of those dudes, I'm like, oh, hell, here we go. One of those guys that can't control their weight. And weight has been an issue for him in the past. And that's something the Eagles are going to have to work with him on if they want this guy to be someone that is a viable candidate to help them moving forward. But nonetheless, he played in 46 games in college, started 32 of them. Gives you a little bit of versatility because he started at both right tackle and right guard. And in certain games, he played both of those positions. I watched the game versus SMU in 2017 where he started the game at right tackle. They had an injury to the right guard. He kicked inside the guard. They brought a different tackle in. The guard went and got an IV. I'm assuming he had cramps, came back in the game, and he kicked right back out the right tackle. Guard goes out of the game again. He kicks down back inside the guard, and then the guy comes back once more, and he goes back outside the tackle. So that's the kind of versatility you get from Matt Pryor, is his ability to go and be interchangeable from right guard to right tackle. So I know the Eagles love the fact that they got a guy here that can do a little bit of both. And I'm going to tell you right now, I prefer my Matt Pryor at tackle. But we'll get into that as to why. So 6 starts at right tackle, 26 starts at right guard, started the final 32 games of his collegiate career consecutively. So a little bit of durability there with Matt Pryor as well. Obviously, measurables, he's massive. I really don't need to get into that. I've already talked about that. Athleticism, I put down in my notes, moves much better than I thought he would. I was actually surprised. Now, look, I'm not saying this guy's some crazy athlete for his size. I'm just saying he moved a lot better. I thought I was going to get a plotter, a guy that struggles to move, a guy that doesn't want any parts of being out in space, a guy that lunges because he doesn't want to move his feet because he's lazy. Nah, and I didn't get any of that with Matt Pryor, which was a pleasant surprise. Technique isn't the cleanest nor the most technically proficient, but he gets the job done. And look, at the end of the day, the NFL is a results-based business, all right? I always tell you, it's a Janet Jackson league. What have you done for me lately? Doom, 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 doom. Ooh, yeah. And This guy right here, it's not always the cleanest. It's not aesthetically pleasing. You're not going to point at this guy and say, hey, that's how you do it. This is a highlight clinic right here. No, you're not doing it. But what does he do? He gets the job done snap after snap. And at the end of the day, I really don't give a shit what it looks like. As long as you're not picking up penalties and you're getting your job done, I'll take it. And so that's what Matt Pryor essentially brings to the table. Anchor. I put down in my notes. You're not moving this man against his will if he's centered. If this guy is balanced, he has his feet on the ground, he's planted, he's got a good center of gravity, he's not moving anywhere. You're not moving 6'7", 335. You're just not. Now, if this guy's off balance and someone's able to get up under his pads, he does have a higher center of gravity. So if you're able to get up under his pads and he's not on balance, yeah, you can drive this guy back, put him on skates. Anybody can be put on skates. I don't care how big you are if you're not centered. And we know these defensive linemen are big, they're strong, they're physical, so they can move this guy against his will. But if he's planted, no guy's just going to step to him and just jack him up. It's not happening. So he's got a pretty good anchor. I didn't see it on tape. I didn't see anybody moving this guy and collapse in the pocket. Balance is actually pretty good for a guy his size that at sometimes you would expect to lunge, and he does from time to time, but I never saw it really, really get him in trouble where I just saw him, ole! And see somebody beat him around the edge or somebody beat him with quickness off the snap because he lunged. I really didn't see that often. Toughness, he's tough. You start 32 straight games. Again, there are nicks and bruises that just come with the deal of being a football player. If anybody's ever played football at any level, you know you're going to sustain some kind of nick, some kind of bruise that makes it tough to lace them up and do it again next week. So to play 32 straight games, that's pretty damn impressive in terms of toughness. Pass blocking ability, I like him better as in pass pro than I do run blocking. So I like him as a tackle. I love his length as a tackle. He does a good job of keeping guys at bay with that punch that I referenced. And I actually was surprised at how well he moved his feet for a guy his size out on an island. I was thoroughly impressed. And you've got Big V on the roster, and they were on the same team. They know each other. And Big V's another one of those guys that I wasn't uber impressed with Big V, but you're surprised at how well he moves his feet for a big guy. Same could be said for Matt Pryor. Run blocking, he's solid. He gets the job done, but he's not nasty. He's not a nasty boy. Nasty boy. He's not a nasty boy. He's not nasty. He's not taking a guy, dumping him on his skull, dropping on top of him. He's not taking a dude and depositing him into the seats on the sidelines because he can. Nah, he's okay with just doing his job, getting in the way. And he doesn't sustain good enough for me in the run game. His guy can end up making the tackle. I've seen it done. So he's solid in the run game. Nothing to write home about. I like him better as a pass protector than I do a run blocker. Awareness. I thought he was really aware at picking up twists and stunts. They were nothing for him. He would pass one off and be waiting like a receiver, waiting on that stunt to come around or that twist to loop around, and he'd pick it up with ease. So very aware as to what the defense is trying to do and picking up those different TE games up front. Recovery, his length gives him a fighting chance. When he does get beat, his length allows him to get back into the play and salvage the rep just in case he gets beat initially. Availability, as I mentioned, guy played in 32 straight games, 46 for his entire career. So he was pretty available. He was pretty durable while at TCU for the length of his career. You go to his cons quickly. Redirect. It's hard to start and stop and change directions on a 6'7", 335-pound frame. It just is. That's not something that he does very well. Finish. I told you, he's not nasty. He's not a guy that's looking to crush somebody. I can tell you this. I watched the play, and this is just how big he is, all right? I watched the play where they used him as a puller, and he he came around. He may not have pulled. This was against Oklahoma in 2017. I don't even know if he pulled in this particular instance. In any event, he gets to the second level, and he gets his hand on a linebacker. And you know how you pick something up and you think it's a lot heavier than what it really is? So you are bracing yourself to use a little bit more strength to get it up. And then you pick it up and it's really light, and you pick it up really quick because it was a lot lighter than what you expected. He contacts this linebacker, and I don't know if he thought he was going to need more force or what the case was for that particular block, but he literally picks this guy up off his feet because the guy was much lighter than I think he expected. And I don't think he meant to fall forward with him, but because he was so big and he came with so much force and the other guy was so light and offered not a lot of resistance, they just both fell on the ground forward like 2 yards. And so I feel like he can do that more often, but he just doesn't have that in him. That nasty streak to take a guy and pancake him, it's not what Matt Pryor is really about. So that's a con there. And then pulling. I put down in my notes, generally he doesn't block anybody when he pulls. And I thought the problem with him pulling would be just not athletic enough to get out and be a guy that you're pulling as a lead blocker. He's just not athletic enough to do it. That's not even the case. He's actually fine as a puller in terms of getting out into space. Just doesn't block anybody. He'll get out into space and he'll just run. And you're like, bruh, you just passed 2 defenders out on your way to the 3rd level. How the hell is the back supposed to get to the 3rd level if you don't block anybody on the 2nd level? Like, I don't understand the logic there. Like, oh, damn, you just ran past the linebacker. You just ran past the safety. Where the hell are you going, bro? Where you going? You didn't block nobody. Like, you just passing signs. Okay, you got to use the restroom. You just passed 2 signs that told you to get off at the next exit. So you just passed. You really must not have to use the bathroom. You really must not want to open up this hole for a big run play. Where you going? So he's one of those guys I call a aimlessly wanderer, okay? He wanders aimlessly. He's a aimless wanderer, okay? Other than that, though, Matt Pryor is pretty solid, man. This is a really good lineman to have on your team in a pinch. You need versatility on game day. You don't want to have a whole bunch of extra offensive linemen. You want to carry an extra 2. Matt Pryor is the kind of guy that'll allow you to get away with that because he can play the interior guards. And I'm assuming if you can play one guard position, you can play the other. And he can play tackle for you as well, which allows you to be a little light on game days at the offensive line positions. That's what this guy brings to the table. So really like Matt Pryor. And you're not getting any younger up front either. So I think he brings a little bit of versatility, and I think that's what the Eagles fell in love with in the 6th round, 206th overall selection. Offensive lineman out of TCU, Matt Pryor, for me, is... For those of you scoring at home, Matt Pryor was a double. And to wrap up this Eagles draft in the 7th round, 233rd overall selection, offensive tackle out of Australia, Jordan Mailata is the pick. So Jordan Mailata was one of the most intriguing picks of this draft. Remember a couple of years ago, we did this with the 49ers when they got Jared Haynes out of Australia as a rugby player, and he was a guy that could return kicks, and he looked like a running back. He was a small statured guy, but he was built thick. Most rugby players are built really physically and solidly because you take more of a physical pounding because there are no pads. So those guys are really big, strong, physical, muscular guys with thick lower bodies. Same thing here with Jordan Mailata. This guy is physically built. He looks like a tight end at 6'8", 346. If you can believe that. If you can believe, it was amazing. I saw Trent Williams. I went up to Northern Virginia on a little vacation to a resort, and I ran into Trent Williams. And I was standing side by side with Trent Williams. Literally, we were in line next to each other. And I looked at Trent Williams, and I'm like, God damn, this guy doesn't look like an offensive tackle. Some guys, when they're athletically built, they don't look 310 pounds. That's the same case with Jordan Mailata. This guy doesn't look like he's 6'8", 3. He looks 6'8". Okay, let's stop there. He looks 6'8", but he doesn't look 346 pounds. He's so well put together. Obviously, there's nothing to break down here. You know, I watched his rugby highlights. It's ridiculous. He looks like a kid. He looks like a grown man playing with little kids out in the front yard. You know how, you know, your dad is out playing with a bunch of 5-year-olds and he's playing throwback and run, and you've got 2 kids on one leg, 1 kid on the other leg trying to drag you down. That's what he looked like in rugby. Seriously. It was cheating. They would just toss the ball to him and they would just move the hell out of the way. The South Sydney Rabbitohs. And I say, if I'm the Eagles, first of all, I love this selection because I'm a huge proponent. If you've watched my shows, you know that I love the height, weight, speed specimen in the 6th and 7th round. That's what you do with your late round draft picks. You take a flyer on a guy that has the size, has the speed, has the raw ability, but you're just not sure if he's actually a good football player or not. That's what you're trying to find out. You know he's got the requisite size, the requisite athleticism. He's got all the raw abilities, but can he play? Because you can have a ton of speed and size all day long, but if you can't play, what difference does it make? That's why you take those guys. You want to see if you can develop them. There's probably no better developmental prospect in this draft than Jordan Mailata. So I love this selection from that standpoint. The guy's never played football a day in his life, didn't even know really what football was from an American standpoint. He's 20 years old, so he's a puppy. He's a puppy. 22 reps of 2 1/4, 5'1", 240, which is stupid for a guy his size. Just absolutely dumb, running a 5'1", 2. Are you kidding me? Good night. 35.5-inch arms. Look, I watched the rugby highlights. I wouldn't be opposed to this dude switching to a defensive lineman. I mean, he's that athletically gifted. He can tackle. I watched him tackle the hell out of some dudes. He's the type of guy that I'm interested to see. But we've done this before with a guy from another country that we got all enamored with. We did it with Moritz Boehringer about 2 years ago with the Minnesota Vikings. Everybody was all goo goo gaga. Oh, he's 6'4", he can run a sub 4.5, and guy hasn't even played an NFL snap. So I like this kid. I think that he has a legitimate shot of not only making this Eagles roster, but ultimately doing something for them. It'd be fun to watch, but he's got a long way to go. Also, know this, had a heart condition that he ended up collapsing from twice when he was 17 years old. Had to have 2 surgeries, one on the upper part of his heart, one on the lower part of his heart. So sounds like he had a surgery on his entire heart, upper and lower. But in any event, that seems to be behind him, but that's also something to keep in the back of your mind. But this guy's really impressive, man. He's got the size, he's got the athleticism, he's got some good feet. I watched him do some drills, but he's just, remember this, he's so raw. The guy, I watched him put on a helmet, and he said, I've never worn a helmet before. Like they asked him, how does that feel? He said, I don't know how it's supposed to feel. He said, I mean, if you're asking me if it's on tight enough, it feels good, but I don't know if it's supposed to feel this way. I never wore a helmet before. I've never worn pads. That's how new all of this is to him. So they've got their work cut out for them, but I can tell you this much. He wants to be great. I watched a whole little documentary on this guy to familiarize myself with him. He wants to be great. He wants to change the game. And I think he's got the work ethic to do it. He wants to better his family situation. This is a hell of a pickup. I'm anxious to see him in preseason and how he develops. And this is a good situation for him because he doesn't have to play anytime soon. And he'll get a chance to learn. So in the 7th round, 233rd overall selection, offensive tackle out of Australia, Jordan Mailata is For those of you scoring at home, Jordan Mailata was a double. To wrap up this Eagles draft, another gem of a draft turned in by Howie Roseman. Only 5 picks. That would be my only gripe, is that it wasn't enough picks. I say any draft that's void of 6 picks, we got a problem. But when you are the Super Bowl defending champions, when you have the roster that the Eagles have that is relatively young, and you have limited amount of spots, what good is it to draft 9 guys and you only really have 3 or 4 spots really up for grabs? Doesn't do you much good. There's nothing wrong with competition though, but in the case of the Eagles, I'd much rather have quality over quantity. That's why I kill the Seattle Seahawks every year, because they do the same shit. They swap out quality in form of quality, in favor of quality, and I would prefer quality over quantity, and the Seahawks want quantity over quality, and I'm just not willing to trade out quality at the expense, or quantity at the expense of quality. So Eagles go out, get good football players. Remember, subscribe to the channel, like this video, check out the podcast, Louie Tee Network podcast. That's up on iTunes, that's up on Stitcher, that's up on Google Music Play. Also on the site, LouieTeeNetwork.net. Check out the site. Go ahead and like that and subscribe to the list on the website. And donate if you can. I've got a number of different ways to donate to the Louie Tee Network, empower this movement. All of that down in the description. And if you're looking for a score breakdown of each and every single player selected in this Eagles draft, you can find that also on the website, LouieTeeNetwork.net. This is how the Eagles draft, however, grade-wise, ended up after the 5 selections. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this draft wrap-up of the Philadelphia Eagles, coming through with a triple, a 3.00 for those of you scoring at home. Eagles come out with a solid triple in their draft wrap-up. I've got plenty more where these came from, so stay tuned. I'm your man Louie T. Remember, we're changing the game one video at a time. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me. Have a good one.